everyone, just wanted to bring you a quick video today. This is my second day off in a row actually, and the last day I worked, I was teaching and it was just pouring rain all day, so I wore my favorite diver wristwatch check, I guess. Makes sense right now. Sorry, I'm going to take it off, it's hard to flip around properly. It was pouring out, so I wore my much loved Orient Mako USA. Sorry, it's not focusing. The sunlight's kind of bad right now coming in. And since I wore this to work and then had 2 days off afterward, I found myself wearing it a lot. It's one of my favorite watches to wear around the house. Sort of my day off watch, my beater watch. It's not a watch that fits my normal everyday work style. I have tiny wrists, as you can see, and I teach at a university and also work in a luxury industry, and I tend to wear much smaller, dressier pieces. But every time I find myself wearing this for a few days in a row, I remember just how much I love it. So that's what today's video is going to be, as you could probably tell from the title. First, I wanted to sort of give my little PSA on a book that I'm reading right now. I would have made an individual video about this, but let's be honest, if I made a video about a book, no one would watch it. So I thought I'd just mention it in this video about Orient dive watches. If it wasn't obvious, I'm not normally covered in stripes. I just have my blinds down because it's so sunny, and this is the light coming in from them. But it looks kind of cool. I feel very French. Anyway, I'm currently reading this book, Swing Time by Zadie Smith. It's a novel that came out literally 2 days ago. It was published. I don't know who's watching this. I don't know how much you guys read, but I find that a lot of the lifestyle channels focus a lot on things like how to improve yourself by dressing better, how to improve yourself by speaking better, by having better style, by eating better food, by wearing nicer watches, all sorts of lifestyle channels, and rarely do you hear about reading. And if you do, it's often read the classics, read history books, read philosophy, all of which are important, sure, but one of the reasons, if you buy this whole argument that we need to read because culture is sort of dying in our current society, at least high culture, one of the reasons that's happening is because people don't value our contemporary writers enough. People don't value literature that's being written and coming out now, and so if our culture doesn't value it, if the readers aren't out there seeking it out and reading it, what is the motivation for a young person to become a writer, to become an academic, to become a thinker? So I thought I would just pause a little bit today on the Watch Talk and also mention this book. Zadie Smith is inarguably one of the literary culture's most famous current writers. She's actually British, born in Willesden in London, to a mixed-race family in a sort of working-class North London environment, but she's sort of lived between the US and London for a long time now. She teaches writing at NYU, where I worked at my master's. Unfortunately, I did not have her as a teacher, but she's such a big deal that I would go to events for NYU to work at tables and to talk about, our program and the publications that we were working on. And I swear to God, people would come up to the table and say, "Oh my God, you go to NYU. What is it like to have Zadie Smith as a teacher?" She's a big deal, one of the few truly sort of famous, culturally significant fiction writers. You see pictures of her at the Met Gala every year. She writes essays for the New York Review of Books, I think it is, about people like Jay-Z, about people like Eminem. So she's sort of relevant outside of the very small, close-knit community of literary fiction people, which is why I thought she'd be a good place to start. She is one of the best writers in the world, in my opinion. She writes some of the finest, most stylish sentences and most stylish prose in the English language today, but also tells a great story. She became famous, about 17 years ago now, for her first novel. So if you can see this in the light, White Teeth. This is a book she started writing when she was 19. She was a student at, I believe, Cambridge. She started writing this, wrote most of it, from what I understand, between 19 and 21. It wasn't finished, but she sold it. after a sort of huge bidding war because people were like, oh my god, this young woman is such a talent. There was a huge bidding war. She sold it, finished it, and it was published when she was 24, which is 2 years younger than I am now, which sort of makes me cringe at how not successful I am and how great she was, but it's a testament to her talent. Probably still her most popular novel. And if you haven't read Zadie Smith, I would start with White Teeth, personally. It's just a great book. After which, I've got a bunch of her books back here. I love her that much. She wrote The Autograph Man down here, which is probably her least critically successful novel, but still really interesting, still worth reading. And then she wrote On Beauty, which some argue is a superior novel to White Teeth, but sort of similarly enjoyable for its many characters and its family and identity kind of topics. And then right in between, when I was an undergrad and started grad school, she wrote NW, which is her most difficult, most experimental novel. I really love it, but it's by far the most difficult to sort of enter into the world of Zadie Smith with. Got a couple other books here, some books of essays. I have this, which I actually teach sometimes, The Embassy of Cambodia, which is published in the New Yorker as a short story, but has been published in Britain, or in the UK, I should say, as a standalone book. Very, very short. And then her new book, Swing Time. I'm only about 100 pages in. This is not a review by any means. If you care about reading and being well-read and keeping up with contemporary writing, you should read Zadie Smith. She has one of the greatest ears in the world for dialogue, for prose style, for the way different people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different levels of education, basically anyone. She has the best ear for how they speak, I think, of any writer currently writing, at least that I've read. She writes in a really interesting, generous way about her different characters, tons of empathy, a very warm heart toward very different kinds of people, many of whom are incredibly flawed, some of whom have distasteful opinions. She writes warmly about all of them in a way that I think more people should open themselves up to, sort of being warm and generous to people who are very different from us and who may disagree with us. And she has just interesting takes on identity and what that means and whether it's important, on being from a mix of cultures, on cultural appropriation. She's a writer very much in tune with our times, but not trying to write the way people do online, where it's clickbait, where it's hot takes, where it's presenting an issue as two opposing sides. She is, in the greatest sense, a true literary writer, writing from a more middle ground, more open, generous place. She's just a genius, honestly. Read her. I'll post a couple interviews. Anyway, that's enough about the book. I'll leave some links below if you'd like to listen to a few interviews with Zadie, or even buy some of the books. Start with White Teeth or On Beauty and see what you think. I think she's amazing, and I think a lot of you will agree. But now, without further ado, let's talk about Orient dive watches. So, as I mentioned, I've been wearing this watch a lot on my days off because it doesn't fit my work style, but I really, really like it. Here's the thing. I'm not going to do a close-up review on the Orient Mako USA, which is what this is, because other people have done it, and you can find those reviews all over the internet. Plus, the thing is, there are many options in the Orient dive watches, right? You could be getting a Mako Array 1, you could be getting a Mako USA 1, or Ray USA 1. You could be getting the new Mako 2, or Ray 2, or even the new Mako USA 2, or or even the Orient Mako USA 2, or the Orient Mako Ray USA 2. Sorry, very confusing to keep those all straight. Point is, other than some different features as far as the movement goes and the crowns go, and the bezel font goes and the colors go, this should hold true for any of them. This is why Orient dive watches in general are a great beater watch, a great beginner watch, and why I love them. So I have the Mako USA too, but this should hold true to all the different options. Reason number 5 that I love my Orient dive watch is simple. It's the ultimate beater watch. I'm going to continually put up some pictures on the side that will help with this discussion, but let's keep it simple with the beater watch, right? What do you want out of a beater watch? You want a watch that isn't too expensive, check. You want a watch that will keep on ticking and keep good time, even if you're hard on it, You want a watch that you don't mind beating up. I can tell you from experience, this is an incredibly durable watch. It's rugged, it's tough, it's got some weight to it. I've banged it against an industrial steel fridge. I've dropped it a bunch of different times. I've banged it against walls, against desks. For instance, I was teaching class the other day, talking to some of my students in this kind of like computer classroom where the computers are on risers. And I was talking to my students and sort of gesticulating about what I was doing, and I smashed my wrist against the side of the computer desk. And I was like, oh shit, and then I realized I was wearing this watch, and I was like, oh, it's fine, it doesn't matter, it'll keep ticking. Furthermore, of course, it's a dive watch. It's very water resistant. I'm not a diver. This 200 meter up water resistance is all I'm ever gonna need, but it's a nice peace of mind when you're out in pouring rain or when you're at the beach or whatever else. So that's another thing that for an inexpensive watch, especially for a beater style of watch, is really, really desirable as far as I'm concerned. Especially with the second generation Makos and Rays and the USAs in both generations, you also have sapphire glass, so you're not going to scratch the crystal by banging it around unless you bang it against a diamond, which I think is just great. This is a watch that looks better with scratches. No watch really looks better with scratches on the crystal, in my opinion. So I can bang it up, I can beat up the case and the bezel, but I'll still be able to tell time clearly and see what I'm doing. Absurdly good beater watch. You can do anything to these within reason and they will keep ticking. Number 4, the fourth reason that I love my Orient dive watch. It's great value for the money. I believe the USA 2 you could find from dealers when it came out for just under 200, like 180, 190 range. I would imagine even less expensive now that there's a new generation. The new generation is a little bit more expensive, of course, because of the movement that hacks and offers hand winding, but they're still inexpensive. And especially if you go to the non-sapphire earlier generations, very, very affordable watches. So they're great value for money. The finishing is really nice for the money. You get a mixture of polish and brushed surfaces. You get, on this model, 120 click dive bezel, which I think is wonderful. And you just get something that's going to keep on ticking, be durable in a lot of different situations, different weather, different temperatures, use around or in water, use banging against stuff while you're doing work. It's extremely durable, as I said before, for the money, and also looks really good and works really well for the money. And for that low cost, you're still getting something with serious water resistance, with a real 120 click dive bezel, which you can use for timing, different events, different things. I use it all the time for laundry. And you get a day and a date. And you can't see it now because it's so sunny, of course, but you get great lume as well. The lume on these is wonderful. So tons of value for the money. For under $200, I think it's hard to imagine a much better dive watch, especially if you consider how much the SKX has gone up in price. I would argue, just on pure function and durability, I think the Orient watches might actually be better than the SKX. I don't like the design as much. They're not as fashionable, I think, but I think they might even be better watches for a beater kind of use. Number 3, the reason that I love my Orient dive watch is that it's bold and masculine, but not over the top. It's still tasteful. I'm a really small person, as you can tell from me waving out my arms. This is a 41.5 millimeter watch. It's about as big as I could possibly wear. I usually wear things in the kind of 35 to 38 range, dress watches, vintage watches, things like that, and it's perfect for my scale. I wouldn't wear a watch much bigger than this, and even this is big for my collection. But I like that sometimes. I like to go out in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, or just go out at night for a drink and wear something that's a little bit more masculine, a little bit more, has a little bit more wrist presence than the stuff that I normally wear. It's just a nice change of pace. But I would never want to wear something that was oversized for my scale, that hung over my wrist, that was ridiculous and looking like a dinner plate. That trend makes no sense to me. I think a lot of people are compensating for something when they wear watches that are so large. They're just so out of scale. They're like, well, if I wear a smaller watch, it's not manly. I'm wearing a women's watch. That's absurd. Whatever gender you are doesn't really matter. You should be wearing something appropriate to your size, appropriate to your lifestyle, which is why I often wear smaller watches. Wearing big watches because you think they make you tougher or more manly is stupid. But it is nice to have different styles of watch in your collection, and for me, this is, for lack of a better word, a little bit more butch than what I normally wear, and I like having that option without being garish and over the top and ridiculous looking. Number two, second reason I love my Orient dive watch. They're easy to repair, personalize, and make your own. You can mod these almost to the same extent that you can mod your SKX if you really want to. I probably wouldn't, but you can. The parts are easy to procure and the movements are easy to fix. If you have just a decent local watchmaker, there's not a lot of moving parts in the sort of more modest Orient movements. They're designed to be rugged and durable and easy to fix and cheap to fix, which is great if you have a beater watch. Any mechanical watch is going to need to be serviced and occasionally fixed. But if you didn't spend much on the watch and you want to wear it in rough environments, you also probably don't want to have to spend a ton to get it repaired. And so it's nice that this one is not difficult to get repaired. Sort of additionally, in that same category, I like that it looks good on a lot of different strap options. It comes on a stainless steel bracelet. I'll show a shot of me wearing it on the bracelet on the side. It's a big, chunky bracelet, very well made, but not comfortable personally for me and not as much my style. I put it on this Bond NATO from Blue Shark Straps, which I think is a perfect look for this particular color scheme. But it looks great on a bunch of different NATO straps, especially depending what color bezel and dial you get. You could wear it on a Perlon. If you're the kind of person that would wear a sub on leather, this would look great on leather as well. I personally wouldn't. But there's a lot you can do with it to make it your own, and you don't have to worry about spending a ton to do that or to fix or service it. And finally, the number one reason I love it, this is not in any particular order, but the last reason that I love my Orient dive watch is that it's its own thing. Okay, obviously, let's turn around here. Obviously, it's clearly based on the classic dive watch style, the Submariner. And if you get the really early generations of Orient dive watch, they did do an homage watch, a very cheap, sort of Invicta-esque homage watch. But once they released the Mako and the Ray, that stopped being the case. They're their own thing. They just take classic cues. The Mako USA, especially the first generation, it has the two crowns, which is different and its own thing. Some people hate that. I kind of like it just because it's not the same as everything else. And the hands, if I can take it off, maybe I can show you, the hands and the applied indices are not the sort of the classic copying the Submariner style. Focus. Well, it's not going to focus in this view, I'm sorry. But you can see it's not trying to be the Submariner, it's its own thing. And so I feel good wearing it, that I'm not trying to act like someone or something that I'm not, which is important to me. You should be yourself and show that you have good taste for your current station in life. That can always change, but I don't want to look like I'm trying to be something that I'm not. So yeah, I think the Orient dive watches, whatever generation, whatever style, are an incredible value, and mine is my favorite watch to wear around my days off, whether I'm outside, whether I'm in the house, whether I'm doing work. It's tough, it's stylish, it's fun to wear, and I trust it in pretty much any environment. I'd love to hear what you guys think, whether you have an Orient and you want to sing its praises in the comments, or whether you think there's a better beater watch out there, value for money. What do you think it is? Are you an SKX fan? Are you a Vostok guy? I have a Vostok too and I like it, but I think this is a much better watch. What is your ultimate beater watch and why? Leave me a comment below and let me know. Thanks for watching. I'd love to hear what you think. Please subscribe or like if you found this content useful, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye.